meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. Um, Phil, maybe you could mute. Thank you. Okay, let me just open up my remote meeting script. And welcome to the June 20th, 2023 meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. We are using Zoom for this meeting, which allows the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. As a preliminary matter, this is Arthur Gasparo, Chair of the Commission. Please be sure the meeting is being video and audio recorded. Please be sure to speak clearly in a way that helps facilitate accurate meeting minutes. Please be careful not to share your computer. It may be captured by the recording. All materials are available on the town website. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda, and please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. And please, for any response, wait till I yield the floor to you and speak through the chair. And finally, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And with that, we'll move on to the agenda as published. Are there any questions, comments, concerns with the agenda? Hearing none, we'll consider that adopted by unanimous consent. We have the draft minutes of May 9th. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns with the minutes as drafted? Hearing none, we'll consider those adopted by unanimous consent. We have to ratify the warrants of May 10th and May 24th. Is there a motion to adopt, and as well as any questions, comments, or concerns?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Before we move on to the next item, public comment, I would like to ask the commission for the commission's sentence or agreement to just hold a brief moment of silence for the loss of a family member of our community and one of our fellow commission members. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Are there any items for public comment that are not on for items that are not otherwise on our agenda? Please feel free to speak up or raise your virtual hand. I'm not seeing any other members of the public. With that, we'll move on to item 4 for the Flying Association special permit application and fee waiver requests, which I'll turn over to Manager Carberg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet is a special event application for the Nantucket Flying Association Summer Camp, including requested fee waivers for event guests and the pilot of aircraft. It's been our custom to bring the fee waiver to the commission while I approve the camp special event application. We generally don't do special event applications, but I believe this is a notable exception. The group self-staffs it, they run a great event, it's for the community, and I think it's one we can accommodate. And then I would request that the commission approve the associated fee waivers as well.
Wrong button. Thank you. Are there any questions or further discussion on the request? Mr. Carberg, is that just to notify us, or are you looking for a vote on that?
I'm fine with having notified you and seeing no
concern. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, Mr. Carberg, you have a tenant food truck proposal discussion.
Yes, so I do not believe I see Mr. Sinclair in attendance, but I was approached by Airport Gas, who has the idea and the interest in operating a food truck on their property. I think it has some merit. They're looking for airport sort of general consent and approval before they go forward, approach a vendor, seek town permits, and work on any final lease arrangement that they need through airport administration. I had some initial concerns related to parking, trash, and revenue share, but I believe that Airport Gas has addressed all of these. They have a solid plan, and we can resolve anything as we move forward through their approach with the application through the town. However, I'm inclined to take this on as a temporary and trial basis. However, it is a new and visible use of the property. So it may come up with some adjacent business or commissioner discussion. So I wanted to make sure the commission had an opportunity to weigh in on that use before I directed the tenant.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments, or concerns with the tenant's use of the parcel to include a food truck?
Nope.
Okay, I had a couple of concerns, but those are the same as what Mr. Carberg just mentioned, and I think we'll leave it in his good hands to be sure that the tenant understands that you know, we don't want to have any issues with come up out of this specifically related to those items, trash, noise, and traffic, queuing of cars, that sort of thing. It needs to remain a well-managed operation, and we'll look forward to their formal applications. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let them know.
Item 6, the hangar 8 discussion, Mr. Carberg.
Thank you. I'll start with the ending here. I don't have an item for action, but I wanted to provide you with an update from the previous commission meeting. I've gone ahead with staff, and we've spoke to a representative of Hagedorn Aviation. We've assessed our own ground service equipment needs. And even though we have a list of 52 pieces that require 3,500 square feet of room, these pieces aren't all created equal. And the hangar itself only has approximately 2,000 square feet of usable equipment storage area. So I think there's benefit for us to continue to reach out to Hagedorn Aviation and see if we can approach a combination aeronautical use with a rent abatement in lieu of some necessary repairs to the hangar, as well as a possible rent back in the winter of space associated with our most critical and most important ground service equipment. It's the GPUs, the air starter, or possibly one of our ramps as well. And then just as a reminder, we are permitted to negotiate directly with an entity regarding an aeronautical use for real property. So if Hagedorn Aviation, can assess the hangar for use as aircraft storage, as opposed to assorted personal property, I'm comfortable that we engage with them directly. If that's not the case, we would have to go forward with an RFP requirement, but we can flesh that out over the next couple of months. So unless there's any objection, I'll continue to reach out to Hagedorn Aviation and have these conversations about future use, see if we can come to sort of the general framework of an agreement on terms. Are there any questions?
Arthur, sorry, you probably can't see me.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, just Arthur brought up at the last meeting. I thought it was a good idea too. If there's any opportunity to maybe use that space towards some sort of a general aviation training facility, the Flying Association, maybe. I don't know how interested they are in that, but maybe if they knew there was that opportunity, that maybe they could utilize that, and we could maybe it'd be nice if we had a 172 down here to do some flight training. I know it's a royal pain to have paid for people to come from Chatham now in order to accomplish this, which a lot of guys are doing. It's very expensive. Anyway, just throwing that out there.
So in answer to that, I think, yes, there certainly could be that use. There are two items that I think are important, and I'll go a little bit more into detail on them. If there is a potential for evaluating two competing aviation interests, I think the airport should do what they've done before, which is issue a request for expression of interest, where we set the general terms and we get formal responses back from two aviation related entities, so we can evaluate them based on the criteria we deem important. And I think another aspect would be the same rent in lieu of repairs to hangar. You know, at the very least, the hangar or the building needs a good cleaning, it needs painting. It is still on a well, which even though the well is discontinued, the hangar hasn't been connected to town water. And that's something that a private party would be able to do much more efficient manner than we could. So those would be items that we would ask, I think, for any aeronautical entity, whether it would be potentially NFA or Hagedorn Aviation.
Bill, does that answer your question or anything further?
Yep, no, that's good. Just as long as if they could just be, you know, considered.
Anybody else? Okay. Please keep us posted. Item 7 still pending. Mr. Carver, regarding the memorandum of agreement.
Stand by, it had asked for a last second update. Yep, that is still pending.
Okay, and number 8 also then.
Also pending.
And we'll move on to item 9 regarding the DPW update presentation for Sun Island Road.
Sure. So on June 7th, the town received a presentation from their consultant regarding potential relocation of the town's DPW facility. They presented a base case of retaining the existing site in Mattakit and reviewed 2 additional alternatives, a relocation to Sun Island Road or to Shadbush Road. Both the chair and I were in attendance. My position is that the airport and the town are in a good dialogue. While the town goes through a long-term strategic exercise, the town is keeping us involved. My own opinion, and I spoke briefly to this, is that this land, of course, is obligated to the FAA, and our procedural and market value consideration is important, but also that these 5 acres represent a long-term strategic use by the commission. I think Arthur said it very well, that these 5 acres represent long-term financial value to the airport, and it doesn't make sense for the commission to put itself in a place where it can't operate in the black and would have to come back to the town for a subsidy if the airport doesn't manage these lots for revenue. So what I see for sort of the public and the commission's realm are 2 continued items for dialogue. I think the first is, I noticed that there's some initial public feedback against the town renting from the airport. But I think the reality that we have to make clear is that the town and the airport, and even the town and other town departments, have a number of agreements regarding fees and services that go both ways. So a rental for land would not be unprecedented. The other is that we want to keep engaged with the town. There is some logistical sense to the Sun Island location. There are other issues, of course, but we want to work to keep the town updated with pro formas. The last one we provided them was from 2021. So we will continue to work with them as they go forward through their exercise. Any questions that I could answer, or possibly the chair, on that presentation?
I think that kind of covered it. Was sort of on a standby to see what the town comes back with, but I do think that they've been hopefully finally really put on notice that you know, this isn't at just simply the discretion of the airport in terms of what the rent would be. Anything further from anyone else on that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Carberg. Pending leases and contracts set forth on Exhibit 1.
A few items.
Perhaps could we share the screen if possible? Either I could do it or Ms. Nelson. I just think it's helpful when we run through those if we could. Thank you, Mr. Carberg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Boyana. The first item is a lease amendment with Blade Urban Mobility. It's the extension for 1 and I believe their final year of operation. It also contains a permitted use amendment that would allow them to serve Tailwind Aviation customers. Tailwind is the firm that is running the seaplane service from Boston Harbor to Nantucket, and I believe they also have a 55th Street Manhattan service as well. I've reviewed with staff. Our position is they have a business relationship with Flyblade, and it's a small operational benefit to the FBO to move those customers to the Blade Lounge. The airport would still receive full ramp and landing fees associated with those operations. So we recommend approval on that. The second item is a 3-year contract with On Scene for a little over $242,000. This contract is a result of our inability to hire a mechanic. On Scene is an off-island firm that will service PERF vehicles. We have included the fire department for both economy of scale and as they are a primary mutual aid partner. So the work for both the airport and NFD would be done in our SRE bay with the fire department invoiced separately. I can't tell you exactly how these costs will break out. The $242,000 figure is 3-year duration for combination of airport and NFD vehicles. For a sense of scale, I think NFD has 11 vehicles on this list and the airport has 3. So we do not anticipate utilizing the full amount of this contract. The third item that I have is a contract amendment with McFarland Johnson to decrease the South Ramp design fee by $219,000 from the original amount of 1.5 million and change. This accounts for the removal of the GSE storage space in the material stockpile, aka the berm. I think it was a great staff idea, but it's a low priority and it is a difficult technical bidding issue, mixing the vertical and horizontal construction elements with a potential DOT reimbursement. And finally, we have a contract amendment with McGovern Municipal HQ, an amendment to extend the contract until the end of December. This is for our parking vehicle, our electric parking enforcement vehicle, the manufacture and delivery of which has been delayed due to supply chain issues. The firm did offer to bring us a loaner vehicle at their cost, but even the logistics, I appreciate the effort, but the logistics of that were even somewhat difficult. So we prefer just ultimate delivery of the final vehicle.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments on any of the contracts, leases, or agreements?
I just have one question.
Go right ahead.
The maintenance on the vehicles, so it's 3-year maintenance contract, which is like $80,000. Yeah, $80,000 a year. Is that like a fixed amount or is that like an estimate of what it's going to be? And as you said, it looks like 80,000 for 13 vehicles. Is that fair?
It's a not to exceed amount. The method of procurement was an invitation for bids, not a request for proposals. So that is the amount to service all of these vehicles. If we took one of these vehicles out of service, we would not pay that amount per invoice. Whether it is this was the second lowest of 3 bids. One of the bids was ultimately disqualified or terminated. I think it does represent a good bit of money. But I put that against the observation that mechanics are valued at about $70 an hour right now. And this is a firm that mobilizes to the airport, I think twice a year with a service vehicle. I think it really is market value.
Yeah, but like I said, it's for the 13 vehicles, right? So realistically, only about, whatever that is, like 8% of that's going to, or 7% of that's ours of this 242, right? The rest of it's going to be the town's. If I understand it correctly, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Anybody have anything further? Is there a motion to adopt or approve the leases and contracts and agreements set forth on Exhibit 1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. Pending matters, Mr. Carberry.
Okay, for the capital approval process, the town chief financial officer and airport staff are working actively on getting a meeting together to discuss the process for utilizing that home rule petition. I hope to have more to report out in the next several months. For the PFAS update, I have 5 items for you. It's a little lengthy this month. To begin with, there is an updated PFAS status table in your packet. 545 samples have been taken from 80 individual wells. 2 additional homes were connected to town water in May for a cumulative total of 28 residences. One of the new connections is a homeowner who was below 20 parts per trillion, but elected to make their own connection. So I'm reviewing if we really do want to include that connection on the status table. Only one of those connections was our responsibility. IRA status report number 14 is due in late August, and we have tentatively asked the consultant to hold September 12th for the data presentation to the commission. This may be the final IRA status update required by our phase 2 work. Staff would still have the option to request that the consultant supply the non-regulatory updates or the interim status reports at appropriate intervals in consultation with the commission. In July, we are expecting mobilization of the deep well drilling firm to the island. This is the boom truck with a 33-foot boom that utilizes a sonic drill head. It's a professional firm. Our staff are also professionals and well accustomed to escorts. However, this is trending to be a very disruptive event. As I mentioned, a 33-foot tall boom on the airfield is a very tightly managed activity. We've just received the FAA airspace review, and some closures will be required. We'll do what we can to stage work at night or off-peak times, but there will likely be some disruption. Potentially runway closures with prior permission for commercial flights, some planned delays. Our approach is to look at balancing our operational needs, grant assurances, and our state DEP cleanup requirements. As I like to say, we can make it safe, but we can't make it free from complaints. So that is just a little bit of a foreshadowing. I expect it to be done safely and competently, but we may have some air carriers who take issue with some flights or some private operators whose clients may be a little bit unhappy that they can't fly on an anticipated schedule. But we'll keep track of those and we'll do the best that we can. Looking ahead to August 31st and our July and August meetings, in your packet, I've inserted the PFAS water service policy that the commission adopted in 2022. This policy continued the provision of bottled water for 6 residents on Monahansup Road. These residents were in a situation where a new water main did not abut their curb frontage, and connection through the airport and under the fence wall possible really was not as easy as curb availability for various reasons. So the policy extended bottled water provision while we could address these items. Since the commission enacted this policy, the town has moved forward with their water main project and will be putting a water main along the curb frontage of these residents. You know, in my opinion, and I think it's understandable if I were one of these residents, they face a much easier connection process to the town water extension once it's built than working under the fence to the airport connection. So my intention is to work with the town, with the Airport Commission's policy, and recommend an extension commensurate with the town's construction schedule. So we will keep providing bottled water at a reasonable time where these residents could then connect to the new town water main. I think this will satisfy our federal requirements and also sort of the common sense approach with a project that's incoming. That was a lot. I have one more item on PFAS, but are there any questions on the PFAS water service policy specifically?
Commissioners? Hearing none. Mr. Buscarron? Oh, okay. I read your lips. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Please move on.
My final PFAS item is that the FAA has issued its aircraft firefighting foam transition plan. When I say it's a plan to have a plan, I don't mean it condescendingly. There are a lot of unknowns. This really is an outline and a roadmap. There are approximately 3 to 4 fluorine-free products companies have submitted to the FAA for acceptance testing. The industry still need to test these items and tackle a number of items related to performance, training, availability, and decontamination of existing ARF equipment. I put the plan in your packet as a reference, also because I know there is interest in the public. The FAA and AAAE, our industry group, both expect that a fluorine-free foam could pass testing and be available on what's called the qualified product list late this summer or early fall. That's different than airports being ready to just adopt the product and implement it. We're engaging with some of these manufacturers now. We want to be an early adopter, but I caution that there's still a few steps along the way. But we are working on those so we can be as early on that curve as we can. Any questions on PFAS before I move forward to crew quarters?
Not hearing any. Please move on.
Thank you. So to continue on last week's discussion for the crew quarters project, we have advanced design plans. I'd like to recognize Bill Cox, our owner's project manager at CHA Consulting, to present the changes and the figures that are in the packet and answer any architectural questions. My own hope from the commission is that we have consensus or enough direction from the commission to complete the design plans and move to procurement and bidding to stay on our schedule. So with that, I would like to cede to Mr. Cox.
Welcome, Mr. Cox. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Gasparo and committee members. I'd like to share my screen with you. If you can see this, can you all see
Yep.
that okay?
We're good.
That is our current overview of what we've been working on to refine the design that you saw at the last meeting. You can see we took your comments from the last meeting and we've developed an additional area in the basement that we can access the basement a little easier than on the previous plan. And as I scroll back, you can see our first floor, we haven't changed very much from the previous plan that you've seen. We've identified some of the areas that are highlighted in red to make all the suites somewhat accessible according to the Americans with Disabilities regulations and the fair housing requirements that we have to pass as part of this project. So we have 2 larger suites. One is fully accessible, and the other, we're calling it a senior suite. And then opposite from those, we have slightly smaller suites, and they are all with room for a full-size bed and a stand-up shower in those with an ensuite bathroom. The living area we have opened up to the stairs to the basement, which is going to give us a visual aspect that makes this area seem a lot larger. We have rearranged the kitchen to maximize the space we have. We have 2 refrigerators in the kitchen. We have utility area where we have an accessible washer and dryer and some trash and recycling. Ultimately, there will be a exterior trash and recycling area so that these are only for short-term storage. Outside, we have a grill and patio, and then we have the one-bedroom apartment that will be included in the plan. On our base bid for the project, we have an area where we have our storage for bicycles and tenant storage. We have a finished basement area, which is an example of an area where we can make a rec room. And then that also has additional laundry and lockers, a mechanical space, and another unfinished basement space. From your meeting of last time, we have developed also a plan that would be an additive bid item, which encompasses a 2-bedroom apartment in the basement area. And this gives us a very nice opportunity to have a 2-bedroom apartment that would have a kitchen, living and dining area, 2 separate bedrooms, one with a egress well window and another with an egress out to the basement, which allows us to fulfill all the egress requirements that would be needed for the basement space. This will be a bright, airy, open area because we've terraced the surrounding areas where we can enable it so that there's no high wall or there's no fence that would obstruct any views out of this area. Our plan is once we develop this, we can put in the services that we'd be able to either do this in the future or make this an additive bid item such that if the contractor is bidding on this, we can determine a cost and a time frame that the contractor would take and see if we can actually incorporate this into the actual plan that we will put out to bid. You can see the elevations we've developed. So it's really coming along to look like a really nice Nantucket facility that we hope you're happy with the results. And with that, I'll open it to questions.
Arthur?
Go right ahead, Mr. Marks.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for adding the apartment in the basement and making those adjustments. I think that's a good that was a good move to make, and I think in the future it's going to help us out. So thanks for that. And the rest of it looks nice. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll second that. I appreciate the work and how those plans have progressed from the last meeting. I don't really have much for input personally, further beyond this. Other commissioners? Not hearing anything else, so say stay on track and keep us posted. And let us know if there's anything you need from us.
Okay, we will. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to the South Apron expansion project, Mr. Carberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few words before I introduce Mr. Laston to present the design plans. I'll work through this as quickly as I can. We've worked expeditiously on the plans. Last week, I would have said 60% design. These are now 100% design plans for the ramp extension. As a reminder, this is a mixed eligibility project, still grants and airport funding. As we redefine the design drawings, we'll receive more clarification on eligibility items. A few of these items for your working knowledge are related to soils, the existing catch basins, and the existing light fixtures and poles. The FAA has clarified that they're only funding movement of the existing project-related soil for the berm. I understand this interpretation, and it's probably the correct one per the handbook. The impact is that that soil that was off-site that we need from the for the berm would be ineligible, and we would have to pay for that based from our cost. However, also due to a recent change in the ramp pavement box, we are expecting to generate more soil in excess than we did at the 60% stage. So I do not believe that if we need to move soil, that soil cost will end up being excessive or detrimental to our own airport share of the cost. Regarding the existing catch basins, there are existing underrated catch basins that need to be replaced on the south ramp. They're past their service life, they're eligible for replacement, but just not under this grant. Given that this is a safety item, I think it's appropriate that we front the work to have this done in association with the ramp project contractor and seek reimbursement later through our entitlement funds. And I believe Rich will have this included as a bid alt. For the existing light fixtures and poles, there are 8 units between the ARP station and Taxiway Juliet that are also past their grant assurance compliance lifetime and eligible for funding by the airport and later reimbursements. However, my recommendation here is that we address this as a separately designed capital project. Reason being is that I think that it's a little more complicated. We need some design input, timeline, related to how we're going to operate this ramp, warm to hot. And I even think bringing the neighbors into a conversation about light throw, shielding, fixture controls, and seeing what's important to them would be beneficial. In this work, we're reflecting now 2 noise monitoring stations based off of the field visit from the noise abatement consultant. The locations would roughly be at the ramp boundary adjacent to Taxiway Fox, and a third to a halfway down the ramp extension. For construction safety, we are drafting a construction safety and phasing plan that may work to make the entire area a landside project with access through gate 30B. This is significant as the con is that there's an initial higher cost to fence this area off. But the pro is that this is a much safer project in the long term. Limited escort needs to be provided by the airport, and the duration of the project could be done in 1 year. It would be treated sort of surface access project, landside access off of Monahans, and we are coordinating that with the town as well. And then I think the most important update that comes from me and not from Mr. Laston is the operations plan draft. As a handout, I have taken the 60% at the time design and updated our ramp ops plan based on the presentation Preston made in December or January. We'll continue to update and track this operations plan with the design plan drawings as the design elements become official. Really, my goal for now is to highlight and ensure for the commission that we are thinking about the long-term management, staffing, operation, and capital associated with addressing the Airport Commission's priorities for this project. So that is in your packet, and I could take questions on that now or after Mr. Laston's presentation. Who I will see the floor to now, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Anyone have anything before Mr. Laston proceeds? Go ahead, Mr. Laston.
Leanna, can you show the set of drawings? So I make sure I show the right ones. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is the drawings. How do I, Boyana, can I get control? Do I have that ability? Share it now.
Do you have control now?
No, so let me see if I can find it. No, I don't have that set in my.
So Rich, at the top of the screen under view options, you can go request remote control.
There we go. Give me control. Okay. Did you? You can control her screen. Okay. Except it's not doing anything. All right, I guess you could just drive, Boyana. So that's fine. So we'll go to this is just the general notes, the next page. So this is the overall airport plan. As Noah mentioned, there are a series of stockpiles on the airport. We were hoping to be able to utilize as much of that existing stockpiled soil as we could for this project. The FAA indicated that only the stockpile impacted directly by our project they would pay for to put into the berm, and that the reality of that is it's more than 3/4 of the earth that we need to construct the berm. So that's good that they're willing to pay for that much earth to build the berm. Next page. So this is the phasing plans. In a big picture sense, we have 5 phases. The green is the main portion of the expansion, and that is going to be a landside project. So we will put up a temporary security fence so that the airport will not have to provide escorts and the contractor has free movement in and out of the site. There will be gates on both sides of the green so that the airport can go through there to maintain access to the perimeter road. Phase 2 is taxiway Juliet. So there'll be a little bit of work impacting Juliet and Delta taxiway. We have a separate phase for that. Phase 3, which is the purple, is installing the main drain line and connections for the new taxiway Lima, which is on the left side of the new apron, and taxiway Juliet on the right side. Phase 4, the south apron, that just shows the entire south apron. That is for the construction of a duck bank to get from the south apron all the way back to the firehouse. It's also to install a camera and a noise monitoring device. And those are the 7 catch basins that Noah spoke of that need to be replaced. So each one of those catch basins will be 1 day, and they are non-consecutive 1 days. So we will work with airport operations to figure out when we can install or replace those catch basins. And then down in the lower left, number 5, that's the replacement of the perimeter fence. The airport has a standard policy of every time they do a project to install fence. As we all know, the airport's surrounded by a lot of salt water, so the fence just never gets to the 20-year life that the FAA expects. So unfortunately, this fence is not eligible, but we are replacing it as part of the project. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions on the phasing itself?
Oh, please keep going.
Okay. That's phase 1. We just talked about it. Next drawing, please. That's phase 2 and 3. Keep going, Boyana. Thank you. That's just some standard construction details. This is sort of demolition plans, sort of shows what we have to do to prep the site for the new work. We have to cut down a whole series of trees where the berm's going to go. We have to remove the existing tie-down aprons, tie-down anchors. They will get relocated. Remove a series of electrical components, remove some drain line. There's an old, up next to 30B, there's an old irrigation well. Apparently at one point, the grass used to be watered out there, and we are removing that irrigation well. Okay, next drawing. Some standard details. Geometry and marking plans. So this is the drawing that shows how the apron is going to be parked. This drawing and the next drawing show that there's going to be 10 parking positions. And these are for Global 6000 or G6s for the first 9 spots. And then the last spot on the left where you can see the concrete apron, we are constructing that for an A220 as an RON or a remote parking spot for use during the summer when the current commercial service apron is exceeding capacity and we need a place to park a plane. Currently now we park it down on the hold apron, which is not a safe or effective place to park it. So this will be designed for that purpose. This is again the other half. You can see the lead-in lines, all the spots are numbered so that when operations wants to use this, they can literally tell a pilot to go park in space 1, space 2, space 5, whatever it might be. And it should be fairly easy on where the pilot will go to park a plane. We're going a little fast, I guess. Any comments, questions?
Nope.
Okay, very good. Next drawing, Diana. These are just typical standard sections on how to build pavement. This is based on an FAA pavement design software that tells you how thick the bituminous has to be and how thick the multiple layers of gravel beneath it have to be. Next drawing. Again, just some more standard details on how that's all built, some pavement markings. Very standard. Okay, so grading. So this is how it's going to be graded and drained. The lines across the top and the bottom is a series of catch basins and manholes and drainage pipe. And then the square to the left is a subsurface disposal area. The reason that is so large is because the outfall for the entire existing paved ramp was in the woods where the berm is going. So this area not only has to capture our new drainage area, but it has to replace all the drainage that literally just goes out into the woods where the berm is going and disappears. So this is a subsurface disposal system. Subsurface means it'll have grass on top. You'll be able to park your aircraft on top of it. It's expandable in the future. If you wanted to expand the ramp someday in the future, it is deep enough so that that can happen. Next drawing. Again, the other half of the drainage, so that the catch basin to the lower right where her cursor is, that is where all the drainage from the airfield comes into that spot. And originally it went up into the woods, and now it's just being intercepted and being relocated to our new disposal field. Okay. There's our 7 catch basins that are being replaced. They were designed for essentially Cape Air aircraft 20 odd years ago. And clearly we know we park aircraft that are significantly larger than those today. So as Noah mentioned, they are eligible. The FAA just said we couldn't include them in this project, but we can get reimbursement for those at a later date. Next drawing. So keep going, Boyana, please. Next drawing. Next drawing. Well, all right. One more drawing, please. One more drawing. Okay, so there's the noise berm or surplus material stockpile, as the FAA told us we could call it, and they would pay for it. So that just shows you what it looks like. It's approximately 16.5 feet above the pavement of the new apron. So it functions in a lot of ways, and I think Arthur, we should, or excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we should maybe get into this a little bit more when we get to the lighting piece. And hopefully we can satisfy your question with the height of the berm compared to the height of the lights. So next drawing, please. There is a cross section of the berm. So this was designed by Weston, who is the airport's PFAS consultant. So it is both lined and capped with a fabric. And then it has vent pipes in it. The soil just needs to naturally breathe. If it's got organics in it or it gets moisture in it, it needs to have a place to vent. So that is the vent pipes that's shown. And then on top of it is some capping soil, and then there'll be grass seed, topsoil and grass seed on top of that. Okay, next drawing, please. Some standard details of how that's going to get constructed. Next drawing, please. Next drawing, please. Pavement mark signs. These are standard airport signs on guidance signs for pilots on naming variety of taxiways and taxi lanes to get in and out. Next drawing, please. Again, more signs at the other end. We did talk to the FAA. This work is all eligible, so we are all set with eligibility as far as replacing all these signs. So this drawing here shows where the lights are going to go and where the cameras are going to go and some other equipment. So we're all the way over to the left. There is a camera, and then there are a series of lights. Each one of those lights are individually controlled with a light switch at operations. where her cursor is now, there's another camera that is a PTZ or a movable camera, so that that camera can be used to look at the existing ramp or the proposed ramp. And then in the middle of that proposed apron area, there is both a camera and a noise monitoring station. And then on the existing ramp, there is both a camera and a noise monitoring station. And the cameras and noise monitoring stations will be wired back to the operations office in the ARF building so that they are controlled and observed by the ops staff. Next drawing, please. Some standard FAA lighting details. Next up, some more standard lighting details. So here is some drawings that show, one more back, please, sorry. So here is some details that show the light foundation, the light pole, the camera, and some other standard details. So the idea, Mr. Chairman, is that the lights on the extension are 15 feet high, and the berm is 16.5 feet high. To sort of discuss a little bit of your question that I received through the airport manager, in the original drawings that you saw, we did have shielding on those lights, but the poles were 25 feet high, so they were higher than the berm. So in this particular case, the lights are now only 15 feet high, so they're lower than the berm. We can certainly discuss more with you if there is still a need to have shielding on those lights, but they are lower than the berm itself.
Okay, why don't we keep going through the whole thing maybe, and then we'll come back to any questions.
Absolutely. Okay, next drawing, please. Again, this is airfield lighting showing how we are replacing or installing new taxiway lights and how we're going to power the lights and signs on the taxiway. Next drawing, please. Again, the other end of that, and these will all be controlled through the airfield lighting system, so they'll be controlled through the tower, through the electric vault, as regular airfield lighting is controlled today. And then here is the section of the fence. There was replacing the existing fence as requested. Next drawing, please.
It was the last slide.
Okay, last picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lasden. Commissioners, any comments? There was a lot of material. I think MJ has done a great job getting this pulled together for stay on track for this grant timeline and incorporating the comments that we've had over the last couple of months. Does anybody have anything they would like to comment on?
I said one thing
Go
there.
ahead, Mr. Marks.
The fence they repaired or the proposal to replace, weren't we trying to do something up at the other end where the end of the runway is, where because of the erosion and stuff like that, and move the fence back up there? I didn't know where that was and if we could maybe flip flop that, if it made any sense. I don't know. I'm not sure if it does or not. I know we were working on that a while back.
Mr. Cabrick.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Marks. You're absolutely right. We are working on that, but we'd like to address that as a separate capital project beginning in this August with review of our 5-year capital improvement plan. Because it also involves the moving the perimeter road, and we have permitted conditions for the removal of the abandoned fence or non-removal as it is. I think we leave some of the posts in the ground. Is not to destabilize that bank. So it is a fairly complicated separate project.
All right, fair enough. Thanks.
Anyone else? To address the point that Mr. Aston brought up, which after review of the plans, I had just sent a comment regarding shielding of the lights as he referenced. I still think it would be a good idea, even at the lower level, if there's not really a negative impact to the light of the ramp, and you can kind of have it both ways, because there's also, while it's lower than the ramp, I think the shielding might help for uplighting and that sort of glow that you get. And I think that by including it, it really helps to strengthen our position of best management, doing the sort of a maximum feasible compliance position with the dark skies bylaw. And so I think that those shields, if possible, would be a good idea. Other than that, I think you finally have warned me out of comments.
Well, we appreciate all the comments. As the manager has said, this was an extremely fast project.
Yeah, I recognize how much work you've put into it, and it's appreciated.
And everybody from the FAA and the state to the Airport Commission has provided great assistance and guidance on helping us get this done. So.
I guess one other thing, I did notice the change also I wanted to acknowledge in the drainage. I think there still might be a little runoff off of the entrance to that gate, but I do see that you've adjusted. I think you've done the best you can there. And appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so just keep us posted, please, Mr. Carberg, as this stuff goes out and as we get things back in, and anything we might hear from the FAA. If no one has anything further, we'll move on to item 12 to ratify MassDOT Grant Award AIP 80 for the update of the master plan study. Does anybody have, Mr. Carberg, you need any presentation? I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory per the title.
Yep. Any questions? Is there a motion to ratify the grant award?
So moved.
Second.
I'll
Second.
second.
Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. And on to finance and our third quarter report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet is the third quarter financial highlight report. I'm not going to provide a detailed breakdown as it represents our slowest quarter of the fiscal year from January through March. To summarize, to end the fiscal year 23, quarter 3, we stood at 21 million in revenue against 13 million expenses for a projected fund balance of 12 million. That's not much movement from the close of quarter 2, where we stood at 19 million in revenue and 10 million in expenses with a projected fund balance of 5 million. The difference being that we have since reallocated approximately 6 million in surplus funds at annual town meeting. There are differences in the details in the packet as far as some timing of payments and revenue items from one quarter to the other. And our year-over-year numbers are still not necessarily comparable in the apples to oranges scale, given that we're still comparing to receipt of ARPA and CARES grants in fiscal year 22. The next major movement will be reviewing our fiscal year 23 and quarter 4 year end later this summer, early fall. That will really give us the better picture of the airport as we close out our second strongest quarter and the year end. With that, I see Jamie is here and she loves answering questions. So we'll take what you have.
Commissioners, any questions? Keep up the good work, please. And back to you, Mr. Carberg.
For the general fund repayment proposal and discussion of in-kind services, I was going to take a minute to tee this up for your discussion. On page 134 of your packet, we've inserted our working spreadsheet of the repayments of the town, and we will look for your direction as we have in prior years. The staff recommendation for fiscal year 23 is to make our scheduled payment of $235,620.87. That's our regularly scheduled principal payments, if you will. In addition to that scheduled payments, we provided $84,283.50 of in-kind services in the form of excess clean fill to the town under terms of our MOU. We would like the in-kind service amount deducted from the repayment in addition to and not from the balance owed, which would equal a equivalent of a $319,904 payment on the balance owed. In addition, we would like to make an additional principal payment of $500,000, or we'd like to consider an additional principal payment of $500,000 as we did last year. And that's a point that generated some commissioner discussion. We make this recommendation based on the following 3 items. The first is we have the funds available to make such a payment. 2, even though it's a 0 interest loan, we are unable to prepay other existing bond notes of higher interest. And 3, we are taking on other large-scale projects, both currently and in the near term. Once bonded, these expenses are paid as operating expenses. We also have pressure on our operating expenses due to inflation and the labor market. So we think this will have long-term positive impacts to our revenue budget. With that being said, Jamie and I are here to answer any questions, but it is your money and the additional repayments are at your discretion. Actually, as is the principal payment, we authorize that every year as well.
Any questions from the commission? Really, I think that's the big one is everyone on board with the additional payment?
Yeah, I support that for sure.
I like it.
Same here. Agreed.
You've talked me into it. I had some reservations, but I have worked with the staff and accept their guidance, and we'll let the professionals in the room handle it. And so with that, I don't think you need a formal vote on that, Mr. Carberg, unless you feel that we do. I think it's just consensus.
I believe I can move forward with your consensus. So
Thank you.
thank you, and credit is to Jamie for running a tight ship.
Thanks again. With that, we'll move on to the manager's report.
Okay, for AIP projects, Taxiway Echo, we are putting forward the final closeout documentation now, and then that will come off the list. And that will be a major $20 million discretionary project completed by the airport. Taxiway Golf has been completed for the season. We will regroup in the fall for phase 2. For the master plan chapter, we are completing the revised forecasts. For the geometry project, we are reviewing alternatives for the stub taxiway and runway high-speed crossing. The terminal HVAC project is complete and will come off the list. We just had extensive discussion of the Southwest ramp extension. I don't have any update on runway 624, and I probably will not until August or September. For terminal optimization, I have a somewhat lengthy update. We have evaluated 2 proposals and awarded to NJ or McFarland Johnson. We also received a very good proposal from Sam Architects and Jacobs. We are negotiating the scope and fee for design with McFarland Johnson now. The important reminders that I have for the commission are on the project and project approach. We are designing the lowest impact solution per our charrette, which is a renovation of existing space and minimized infill. But that doesn't mean it's not a complex project with a lot of moving parts. And we are taking on a design project with the hope of taking advantage of a major bill grant for funding. We are at risk if these funding sources evaporate or we can't win it. Our project approach at this time is to proceed aggressively. And what that means is we feel the terminal clearly needs assistance, and our best option to obtain a large bill grant award is to proceed to 100% design apply for bill funding in the appropriate cycle. If we don't win, we still have one more year to try again. But I want to be sure that the commission is okay with that exposure. We are going at risk with a big project until we can compete for design. There are ways we can minimize our design exposure. For example, we could only design to a 30 or 60% design stage. But based off of previous bill awards, it's really the shovel-ready projects, the ones that have been permitted and designed out completely, that receive the highest level of grant consideration. Two more items and then I'll pause for questions. For our ARF trucks index change, we've received approval from the FAA for an index change, and we're scoping both the ARF truck and the ARF equipment. Our goal is to take an on-time delivery commensurate with JetBlue operating the A220 and a fluorine-free foam agent coming into circulation on the qualified product list. And as I mentioned in response to Commissioner Mark's question, the South Shore fence, we awarded that to McFarland Johnson with the new 3-year contract, and we're likely to start scoping a capital project in August. Are there any questions on AIP projects or AIP-like projects so far?
Nope, doesn't sound like it. Let's proceed.
For the non-AIP projects, we just had an extensive conversation on crew quarters. We discussed hangar developments related to the former freight hangar. I don't have an update for you on lightning arresters. For right-of-way research, we are working with a local engineer to extinguish Old South Road and Hinsdale roads as they cross the airport. And we have drafted our internal protocols for the stranded passenger plan. We've submitted to the airlines and we've received their comments as well as comment from the High Line and a few other stakeholders. I'll move to formalize this in the next 1 or 2 commission meetings. We will also have a slight revision to our minimum standards to accommodate that. For RFP and bid status, we were considering a special meeting for June for our on-call contracts. I'm not sure if that's going to be necessary since we've already had to delay this meeting a week. The July meeting might be on us pretty quickly. If we do require a special meeting for a project we may or may not be able to execute, we will circle back to the commission. We've issued our invitation for bids for automated doors. We awarded it to Allegiant Access Technologies. We are still waiting for them, I believe, to submit contract documents for the exhibit. We discussed the issuance of the ARC vehicle maintenance and repair. We've discussed the RFQ for terminal optimization and our status there. For our invitation for bids for landscaping maintenance services, we received 4 bids. All 4 bids were rejected due to form of receipt. We've since decided to cancel this issuance, and they'll get into some positive staffing news later as the reason for that. We've issued and made awards on the RFQs for engineering and planning. We're waiting for consultants on receipt of the rate structure and so we can create the contracts. And we are developing the RFP for lots J and K. These are the 2 small lots behind existing tenants, Toscana and Victor Brandon. For the operations update, the FAA inspection was held May 30th to June 1st. I'm happy to report it was a successful inspection. I wanted to recognize Preston and Skylar for organizing the pre-inspection, Skylar and Fred for facilitating the inspection, Gary for addressing small-scale maintenance items in real time, Shanley for the timed ARC drill response, Addison for the night inspection, Skylar for day inspection, and Rob and Joe for coordinating the tenant and airline personnel training records. We had a new staff in place from top to bottom and we did well, and I think they should be recognized. We did have several recommendations that came out of the inspection. The first is related to capital season and the need for the high-speed exit taxiway. which was very high on our priority list anyway. This will probably be our highest profile in our August meeting. We need to make some modifications to the fuel truck ladder racks and fall protection, and we need to better organize and word our work orders. We had 2 corrections. The first is a marking, several marking items we need to complete by November 15th. Markings were a focus. The inspector had some concern with reflectivity and bead application. We do have a standing capital project already put through appropriation. We're going to look to assign this to Burns McDonnell for completion as soon as possible. The second item was related to driver training records. We do have all of our records in place, but we have them displayed individually, not in a master spreadsheet. So we will change this format and comply by the July 28th deadline. Regarding the lease between the airport and Nantucket Oasis and Access, we're working on an item where the envisioned access point for lot 66 in Nantucket Oasis is too narrow for an 18-wheeler access, which the tenant requires. A simple fence move has been complicated by utilities present on both sides of the airport perimeter road. We are reviewing and prioritizing this, whether it's alternative access or an abatement until we can provide suitable access. We've reached out to the principal of the company. We're having good discussions, and we hope to resolve as soon as possible. Statue Park irrigation, we are still in need of a part. The grass is a little browner than we would like it. It's an important public display area. I just wanted the commission to know that we're working on it with staff. And we may actually be hiring this out to an irrigation company shortly to complete. And related to fuel supply, I wanted to take a moment. It was 2 weekends ago now, given the delayed meeting, but the Boston terminal was either out of Jet A or down for maintenance, depending on who you talk to. This led to the cancellation of 40,000 gallons in product for the airport. We're able to make up 18,000 gallons through our alternate terminal and distributor, schedule an additional delivery for this week. Since then, one of those deliveries did not show up. The truck had a flat tire on its way down. Everyone was safe, but the driver did miss the boat. And then we missed an additional opportunity for reasons that are unclear to me, either to take an extra 10,000 gallons or it was not communicated properly. We may own that one on us. I think the point being that fuel supply remains an issue. The terminal outage was a big hiccup that we're working through. The combined total of all of this is 40,000 gallons at a time where we ramp up supply or keep supply ramped up for the 4th of July weekend. We do have a plan forward. We did start our inventory from a position of strength. So we're doing well, but I will be working with some other regional airports affected by the terminal outage to see if we can get more insight into the Boston jet terminal operations. For air service, United began their service. American starts this week on Friday. The summer tent is up and operational. My understanding is that there was an electrical issue today. Staff was working to address that. The flying minnow is in place and is operating. Passengers seem to be happy again with its presence there. FAA has approved the airport staffing changes. We are working to implement those. It's again, nothing's easy. It's a little bit more complicated than we had anticipated. I mentioned the stranded passenger plan. Looking ahead to the September commission meeting, we have some administrative staff who will be on vacation, and I will likely be at an annual AAAE conference, so I will likely come back to you in July with some requested alternative dates for our September commission meeting, either the end of that week or the Tuesday following. Are there any questions before I move on to statistics?
Commissioners? I had one, and maybe I missed it, but I don't think I did. Where are we at with the impound lot?
We've received a draft appraisal for the impound lot. We're reviewing it at staff level. And then we'll bring a recommended path forward to the commission, probably for July meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let's carry on.
Okay, I am going to share my screen for the statistics report. For April, total operations were down 13.7% and are down 10.8% year to date. Southwest ramp operations are down 24% for April. Planements are down 34% for April and up just under 1% year to date. Cape Air is up 2% in plane passengers in the Boston market. Down 20% for New Bedford. Down 79% for Hyannis. Down 3% for the Vineyard. Jet A gallons sold were down 33% in April and up 2% in May. $100 low lead was up 8% in April and up 15% in May. Freight was down 19.8% in April, with Cape Air freight, FedEx, and UPS down, while the mail has been up. We received 2 noise complaints in April, and in interest of time, I did not prepare an advanced stats presentation for you this week. Stop my share, then I have us. There we go. For a personnel report, Todd Worth has accepted a maintenance 2 senior operator position. Mr. Worth is a transfer from wastewater, and we welcome him aboard. This improves our staffing to 6 out of 8 positions filled in maintenance and 7 of 8 positions filled in operations. We're still short on seasonal positions. The ramp has been busy. On behalf of staff, I wanted to thank you. I didn't pick my words carefully, but I'm going to say them anyway. You're not a commission that gives us a lot of unnecessary extra errands, and that is especially appreciated this time of year. Staff have really been able to focus on the beginning of the busy summer season, and we appreciate it. And going back to my previous comments about the cancellation for the invitation for bids, we discussed the IFB with the maintenance superintendent, and his preference is he really likes having a new person as they work through getting used to the airport, assigned to front of the terminal tasks as they get used to airfield phraseology and as their badge clears. So we will be able to utilize Mr. Worth for a lot of this work we had anticipated putting out on the invitation for bids. And that concludes my manager's report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Carberg? Comments?
I just have one comment.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, just one of the things I've been noticing, and probably keep on your radar, that whole desire and progress towards getting rid of low lead gasoline for airplanes and piston planes. And one of the requirements that I'm hearing about is that we won't be able to just like switch to no lead. We're going to have to carry both fuels. So I don't know how or if we're capable of doing that now, but it's just something maybe to put on your radar to look into.
Yes, so here's where I would like to pump the airport pays regulatory affairs membership to AAAE, and they're doing a really good job of representing the industry. They're involved in Project Eagle, which has identified a replacement, but that a replacement has to be a drop-in replacement, not only to meet the demands of current low lead operators, but to meet the facility requirements of FBOs and airport run fuel farms. It's really, and it's a position that I'll echo. We support the conversion, but we're in no position to add a 20,000 gallon tank to the farm, whether it's above or below ground storage. So we're pushing that initiative through AAAE to work on the drop-in replacements. And I think that I don't want to speak for other airports or for AAAE, but that is the consensus position in the industry right now.
Anything, does that answer your question, Mr. Marks?
Yeah, it's more just, yeah, it does for sure. And I've heard that, and I think the concern is industry-wide is that certain engines may or may not, they may not all get approved at the same time, which was the reasoning for that. So, and maybe they make it so that isn't the case. I don't know, but I just wanted to bring it up that it was a potential issue for us being a fuel seller. That's all.
It is, and I want to provide assurances to our community. We recognize that in the long term, leaded gasoline is an issue, but we don't have plans to phase it out here. Cape Air still operates the service isn't what it was, but they still operate a large fleet of Cessna 402s, which need that product.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Any questions? And then I guess that leads us right into commissioners' comments. Hearing none. Public comment? Seeing no members of the public, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session per general law, chapter 30A, section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda. Under clause 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, where the chair has determined open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the airport commission. And under clause 3, discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Walsh, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the airport commission. Not to return to open session. Is there such a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you all.